Everything must change.
Hello, and welcome to the newest episode of Making a Difference in the Community, Unsung, Heroes, and Heroines. Today's guest is Pittsburgh Black Media Federation. This is the third part of our coverage, and today we're fortunate to have as our guest the president, Mrs. Tory Parrish, the vice president, Mr. Brian Cook, and Chris Moore, the longest standing member.
I'm the old guy, huh?
Okay. He's the old guy, he said. I feel I'm the old.
You're not getting older, brother. You're getting wiser. That's what it's all about.
Tell my niece
that.
I wanted to refer to Tory first to basically give our audience history of Pittsburgh Black Media Federation and an overview of the purpose and mission.
Sure. We were founded, the Pittsburgh Black Media Federation was founded in 1973 to advocate for black journalists, to be an advocate for diversity in newsrooms, to train young journalists, and to recognize excellent coverage, media coverage of minority communities. We are a member of the National Association of Black Journalists. We predate them, actually. They were founded in '75 and we were founded in '73, but we are a member. And we actually are Chapter of the Year this year, so we're very proud of that. And we're a growing, very active chapter. We do a lot in the community, a lot of professional development, just a very active chapter.
Okay. And Sir Brian, you are a journalist and a filmmaker, and I understand you were fortunate enough to interview the president, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, I am, thank you for having us on the show, first of all. My discipline comes first from radio. I worked 14 years in national radio with Sheridan Broadcasting, and also worked for several years on WPXI with a show covering the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm a broadcaster by trade, but at the same time, since 1999, when I was in college, I learned how to shoot and edit video. At that time, it was so difficult to get fellow students to help us in college to shoot and edit pieces, especially everybody had to go to class and the like. So I learned how to do it on my own. So when it came down to shooting, you have to shoot your own pieces, then edit them, and then you have to go out and shoot yourself and do your own stand-ups. So, one of the things, and Mr. Moore, Chris Moore, is going to talk about how we train young journalists in the multimedia program. But you have to learn how to, piece all of those things together, many times by yourself, and that's the way the industry is going. So, yes, I'm a filmmaker as well, working on some short documentaries, and hopefully one day some long ones.
Well, I have a real appreciation for that, because as a filmmaker, it's really not my forte, and I have deep respect and appreciation for that part of the collaboration. Mr. Moore.
Yes?
Most people know who you are.
They do?
What is it that you want to share with the audience?
I'm told my role today is to talk about the journalism workshop that we conduct, where we teach young people, as Brian was alluding to, how to do what we do. We've been doing it for 34 years now, and I am the founder and co-director, and have been so for all 34 years. And we take young people, high school students, who want to do what we do, and we show them how to do it. We show them how to act the part, be the part, speak the part, and all the rest. And many of our students have gone on and are probably now making more money than I am, because they're working for MSNBC and O&O CBS TV stations. And one of our students, Keith Alexander, right out of Steel Valley High School, just was part of a team of reporters at the Washington Post that won a Pulitzer last year. So we know what we do works. Even for the students that don't go into this field, they tell me they learned the art of speaking, writing, and much more that helps them in whatever chosen field they take.
And that's called a Frank Bolden Urban Multimedia Workshop?
Yes, we named it after Frank Bolden, who was during World War II, one of only 2 black men who were certified by the then War Department, that's what they called it, to be war correspondents. And he wrote for the Courier, he was a city editor for the Courier, and he was my personal mentor. I used to introduce him to the students. If you all consider me your father, meet your grandfather.
Right. And as I was saying earlier, I was fortunate enough to have the same barbershop in the Hill, and he would come into the barbershop and he would just like
hold court, right?
He would hold court. I mean, he had everybody in that barbershop.
He could turn a phrase like "no one I know."
Tory, can you share something about what you do professionally with the audience?
Sure. I came to Pittsburgh in December 2010 for a job at the Trib. I was a reporter, first general assignment, and then business. And in March 2016, I was put on a new Trib team called Upgrew. It's a website, completely online news. And I've been on that since March 2016. So it's an entity owned by, or co-owned by Trib Total Media.
Okay. And basically, you cover culture, pop culture, or
that's a good way to say it. It's aggregating or curating current news from all over really all over the world, but really in the nation, and then also some Pittsburgh news, some original writing. But it's a lot of pop culture and unusual things happening in news. It's not traditional news.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as those of you who watched the last show, how this whole my involvement with Pittsburgh Black Media Federation, which I plan to join and be as active as I possibly can.
We'd love to have you.
We're always recruiting.
We'd love to have you.
I happen to have a membership application.
Yes. We take checks, credit cards, cash.
Yes.
I received an email from a colleague and was talking about the American Heroes, you know, the Homewood Project. And I was like, of course, since it was, this show is Unsung Heroes, and that theme was the same. I was very, very interested, and so I made sure that I attended. And of course, you guys were gracious enough to allow me to show my movie and met a lot of people, and I just became very, very interested. And so, of course, we did the follow-up with Dr. Dyer and Mr. Neely and some others came onto the show, and we just had a very good time. And John Brewer was my guest after that. Could you guys talk a little bit about how that all came about for those who didn't watch that show? And
Sure.
We could discuss that a little bit because I'm very excited and interested in that.
What Tory alluded to a little bit earlier is the Pittsburgh Black Media Federation is a chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists. And in June of this year, 2017, the National Association of Black Journalists coordinated with 22 chapters amongst the organization, if you will, to do what's called Inspire Black Men, and it's hashtag Inspire Black Men, to somewhat reverse the stigma, the negative stigma that you see amongst African American males in the media. And also, you know, with us being advocates of diversity in newsrooms, not only just on the air or as writers and reporters, but as producers and news directors, if you will, to help tell some not necessarily positive stories all the time, because there are some negative stories in all communities. However, there was an overabundance of negative stories amongst African American communities, particularly African American males. So they decided to have a nationwide program where you're telling positive stories about those African American males. And again, it's hashtag Inspire Black Men. here in Pittsburgh. What we're doing is it's Homewood Heroes, or American Heroes, the Homewood Project. And we focused in on, an African-American community known as Homewood, where, there's been an oversurplus of negative stories over the years, but we're singling out 20 positive black males who are doing great things in the community. One of which is Anwan Wesley, who is a basketball coach and very influential amongst young people. Another is Neil Dorsey, who is the son of Mr. Dorsey. Everybody called him Mr. Dorsey down in Homewood. Dorsey's Records. Okay, when you think about the true essence of Homewood, you think about those places. Dorsey's Records and Baker's. William Baker is also one of the heroes as well. And, Dana's Bakery. These are all stalwarts in the community. And, some people say, hey, they're unsung heroes. People in the community know them, but we want to make sure that the masses know who they are as well. So a part of that Homewood Heroes project, we received a $10,000 grant from the Heinz Endowment, which is going to help us, with the funding of this piece. And we're going to have a ceremony sometime in the fall of 2017 to honor those heroes. Now, in the Homewood Library, we're going to have, one-by-one banners of all 20 of the heroes. So we took headshots of them, okay? So you see them head on or from the side, profile pictures. But there's also going to be a video element that's going to be a part of that as well. So you actually get to see them in motion, see them talking, see them interacting with people in the community. So it's a nice project that we're putting together, and we hope people from the community will come out and support it.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that it goes beyond,
Sure.
Pittsburgh and Homewood, and it's kind of it's what I do with my writing. Now, Mr. Brewer and I had a great conversation about it, because what I want to do is bring some of these people who had tremendous lives and accomplishments, and nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
And but tell the story from our perspective. And so what
Absolutely.
you're doing by bringing out these people who are really doing great things in the community and making people aware of them, it's a really good thing.
Yeah, and there's almost like a sense of duality, if you will, when you're talking about giving people their roses while you can smell them. While they can smell them, the people who have, done so much for the community, but then about the community itself. Right. So you mentioned John Brewer, okay? Right. One of the best historians I've ever spoken with. I've interviewed him in the past as well. Right. But just little tidbits of information is what he has, and which he spews to the audience. Like, one thing about Homewood, every street in Homewood that starts with the letter F is a part of the flats in Homewood. So, there's hills. Of course, Pittsburgh's a very hilly place, but, streets like Formosa Way and Fleury Way and Finance Street over by the busway and the Martin Luther King Jr. busway down in Homewood, those are all part of the flats of Homewood, and he gave me that tidbit of information. I had no idea.
I learned something today.
Yeah.
Me too. Who knew?
Right. He's just a wealth of knowledge.
He's fascinating to me, and the whole story about the people that he watched walking around his street when he was a boy. It just tells you so much about Homewood's history. And when I saw that board for the first time, I was just in there just walking around for a long time, just fascinated with what goes on there.
He's one heck of a football player, too.
That's what I heard. Yeah, I heard he was.
Yeah. His father was my
dangerous.
elementary school principal, and we knew he was a Pittsburgh Courier All-American. He and his twin, and so a lot of things that's coming out, and what we try to do on this show is the way I came across doing this show is I had taken note of there's so many people in the community who are doing a lot of heavy lifting, doing so many wonderful, wonderful things in the community. People in the community know them, but a lot of people around the city are not aware of what they are doing. So I wanted to bring those people on the show to
Absolutely.
expose, some of the great things they were doing in the community.
Sure.
So we've been doing this almost 2 years now,
Fantastic.
and
I think what you're doing, Lorenzo, is admirable. But as you said, most people know these folks in the community already. And the other thing is, I don't think that they do it for people to sing their praises. And so it's nice when folks like you do it, but they do it because it needs to be done.
Exactly.
And I think that's something the larger community that I sometimes deal with never knows.
Right.
Very true.
Right.
And you mentioned, the wall. That wall you're referring to is at the Homewood Coliseum, and there's so many people who have come through the ranks, that came through Homewood, and I'm sure we can do Homewood Heroes projects and not even exhaust.
You got police chiefs,
We won't exhaust our resources.
doctors, lawyers,
Right. Talk show hosts,
business people, yeah.
Absolutely.
A
Absolutely.
gentleman
Jazz
that,
artists.
I was just brought to attention, who's one of the pioneers of cable television, that my friend brought to my attention, and I was just, this is really, really amazing, and just go to show how much talent has come through this city.
Absolutely.
I'd be willing to venture any day. There's not a lot of places in the country who had more talent come from at Pittsburgh, including Harlem. That's, a lot of talented people have come from here.
Absolutely.
Soul Cafe. Would you like to tackle that?
Sure. Soul Cafe, the Soul Cafe, I believe is about 20 years old. It's almost an annual event that PBMF puts on, and it's a scholarship fundraiser. It's a live music and art showcase, so local performers, singers, musicians, poets, spoken word artists come and they can perform and present their talent, and we sell tickets. We typically provide food, and we have a good time. It's a fundraiser for our scholarship program, for college scholarships. So it's a really, really good time. We just had it this year on September 16th at Roland Seafood Grill in the Strip District. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be very, very interested in that. I had just heard of it when I was doing this research. I was at Mr. Dyer, Mr. Neely brought some of these people's attention, like Miss Moyer and this gentleman, Ayo Dayi.
Yeah, Ayo Young.
Ayo DG Young. He's just a real, then Mr. Baker. And I was
Owner
just
of Baker's
thinking,
Dairy.
that's these positive stories, things that are happening in the community, and
Where else could you get a hand car wash for $15? But at Baker's Dairy. A hand car wash, not this automatic leave brush marks on your fine Cadillac, but a hand car wash, for $15. It's amazing. Not to mention he's in this food desert. He's got food there, and people stop by there for all sorts of things. So he's an entrepreneur. His wife had a business over there for a while that dealt with art and so much more. These are people that we need to sing their praises. So hats off to you, brother, for doing that.
Absolutely.
thank you very much.
You know.
And Brian, I was reading your bio, and I was like, yeah, I didn't know you existed.
Okay.
And which is on me.
Okay.
But I was very, very impressed with the things that you and Troy, are doing. When I started reading, you guys' bios, and a lot of the people I know because they're of my age, and I knew they were involved with Pittsburgh Black Media Federation. However, I was a salesman for a lot of years. I won't say how long, but I was more a corporate America, type guy downtown. So I heard about it, and I have attended a couple events. But now that I've changed my life around and I'm more a media person, of course, is, you know, been magnified, and I'm excited about getting involved, you know, and participating in any way. Is there anything that anybody wants to share about what you guys are trying to do and what it is that you...
Yeah, I would like to share, talking about hats off, my hat is off to the leadership of this organization. I am, as they said in the beginning, the longest serving member. I've been active since it was reformulated in 82 or 83, and I have never seen the kind of activity. We've always been a pretty good organization, but any organization I've ever been involved in, I always say that there are about 6 mules in the harness pulling the wagon, and a whole bunch of people will jump on for the parade and wave and smile and that kind of stuff. But the leadership of this organization over the last 6 or 7 years, and we've had great leaders in the past, Dr. Irv Dyer and so many other people. You start naming them, you end up forgetting somebody. But the leadership of this organization has moved it forward. I almost can't keep up with all the projects that we're going to. The one that you mentioned that you were so excited about, I was right down the street at the Homewood Library and couldn't even come up 1 block up the street where you all were at the Y to get involved because I'm doing something else. But that's how many things are going on right now. And I've never seen an organization as active and as involved in the community, and it's something that I've always tried to do personally and professionally. And I really like what PBMF represents, all the things that you all have spoken about and much more, book drives and other things that they've done. It's just fantastic.
So,
Thank
you
you,
know,
Christopher.
Yeah, appreciate that, Chris. You know,
Appreciate
and,
that.
you
That
know,
means all that coming from our longest serving member, because he's seen a lot
Hey.
of people come and go.
Hey.
And he was saying
You know,
that to me, you know, before you guys came in. And hats off to you, Tory,
Thank you.
you know, and what you've been able to accomplish to, you know, spur up the momentum, so to speak. And I mean, the media is critical. I mean, particularly us telling our own stories from our perspective.
right.
And that's what I try to do as an artist. That's my main focus, telling our stories from our perspective. And I think you guys are really on the right track with these initiatives.
And you know, you talk about telling the stories from our perspective. That's one thing that we like to do, and we advocate for that. But this is a changing industry, and this industry is changing quickly. Okay, you know, just going back to the multimedia workshop, it was the Frank Bolden Urban Journalism Workshop, but journalism has changed over the years. You know, the internet has made the world a whole lot smaller. You know, you're a filmmaker. You know, Tory has worked in newspaper for a long period of time. Chris comes from, you know, television and radio. I come from radio, television. I'm a filmmaker. I own a company called Golden Sky Media, where, you know, things have changed. Now, people are becoming, we like to call them, you know, internet stars, okay? The internet, again, you know, people are using YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, you know, to really get their messages out there. And there's a lot of non-traditional journalists out there, you know, who are making significant pathways out there. So, you know, that's, you know, our job to, you know, give people a home, you know, to say, hey, you know, we are a collective
How do you think
group
that's
of
going to
journalists.
impact us as entrepreneurs in the mass media moving forward?
Well, it's one of the things that Brian is doing right now, and it's also one of the things that we teach in the workshop. You don't have to do what I did years ago and go out and get a job and work for someone. For the price of a good used car, you can get all the editing equipment and software and cameras you need to start doing what we're talking about, telling our own stories from our position. And when I was young, we didn't have the distribution tool. I mean, I was part of a group that formed the National Black Programming Consortium, which still exists and funds stories to be told on public broadcasting from a black point of view. But now we are encouraging young people to go out there and tell your own stories. Don't go out there and buy a car with a bunch of big rims and $2,000 stereo system in it. Take $6,000 to $10,000 and invest in yourself and some microphones, a camera, some editing equipment, and some computers, and get it in your basement and go to town. Take the tax write-offs for that business being in your home. Be smart about this kind of stuff. And young people are grabbing hold to it with a vengeance. Look at YouTube and what's out there, all the things that are out there on YouTube, the independent producers that are out there now. So they have that distribution system. If they don't start regulating it and shortening the content through various ways that the government is considering now. Go to it, and young people are doing that.
Look at Damon
Brian
Young.
is doing it.
Brian's doing it. Damon Young with Very Smart Brothers. He's got reaches millions of people with his blog, and he's a great writer, and he's quick, and he's independent, so he can write whatever he wants. So there's a freedom with working for yourself.
Otherwise, you
It's
get
hard.
laid off if you say something on ESPN.
Yeah, it's hard.
Owning yourself is great. It's almost like something that appreciates with value.
It's harder. You have to hustle more, but it can also be very lucrative too if you do it right.
You'd be poor for a while, but
Yeah.
We're poor now if you have
Hey, full-time journalists are poor sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
But rich in spirit, though.
yeah, no doubt about it.
right.
And independent. You won't be like Jamel going, how long am I laid off?
They can look themselves in the mirror and like themselves that they're able to get their story and not somebody change that story, and they have to go along with it. You know, so yeah, that's what I was. I mean, I told my professors that when I finished the MFA program, I said, do not set me up with any jobs, interviews. I'm going on my own. And I told them in the exit interview, I'm going on my own. Because I knew from the experience of people giving me notes and different things that it wasn't going to work for me. So I didn't have a choice, really. So I knew that it was something that I had to do. And I've been just so blessed. And I just want to say one thing regarding the day that I showed up at the thing, and I talked about earlier, my friend, Mr. Stanley Ford, he introduced me to a friend of his who is a professor at the Denver Film School, who's become my mentor. And I tell you, man, this guy has opened my eyes to so much, and he's like taking me under his wing. So I want you guys to know that I've been benefited personally, big time, by attending one of your events. So I know how important it is that we do these things and get people in the same room, because you never know who's going to meet and who's going to connect. And
you know what, and just to piggyback on that, I mean, that's the reason why a Pittsburgh Black Media Federation exists, you know, to give people a home, especially journalists. You know, and then some people may say down the road, do you think that a PBMF or Pittsburgh Black Media Federation should stay around? Is it relevant? Absolutely, it's relevant. You know, I mean, there have been organizations over the years that have been great for, you know, especially people of color. You know, Congressman John Lewis and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. You know, the National Association of Black Journalists, you know, the NAACP. These are all relevant organizations to make sure that people have a home. You know, and especially we're talking about the, you know, the people who are, you know, non-traditional journalists, especially them, because, you know, they need to have, you know, someone that they can reach out to and fellowship with, because then they can, you know, learn from, you know, people like yourself, because there's always someone who came before you. And I'm glad that people like, you know, Chris Moore, you know, he had mentors. He's our mentors. And then it's important, I should say more so imperative for us to give back to the younger community. So that's why the Pittsburgh Black Media Federation
That's
exists.
one of the things we teach in the workshop. We tell them, you don't have to found a workshop or something. Just see somebody when you get into a position where you can benefit from helping someone, and they can benefit from your help. Help them out. Give them some career advice. Take them under your wing. Take them to lunch. Tell them how to navigate this minefield that you have been through. You know, if it's each one teach one, then we're making some progress. And I think that's where my generation has fallen down sometimes, because I have to talk about some of the untoward things that happen in our community. And all the projects that you hear us talking about are talking about some of the toward things, toward goodness and greatness that we're talking about. But I have to cover those things, and you get weary of it, you know, talking about what some young black man has done to another. And they don't hear the good work that these young people are doing. The cameras don't show up when they're cleaning up a community or planting a community garden or going to a workshop to learn something about science, engineering, lawyering, anything else like that. But those things are happening in our community, with the exception of this place right here and folks like you, Lorenzo, and the things that we're talking about, those stories are just not being told.
The Robert L. Vann Media Award. I happen to know Mr. Vann's story. One of the projects I'm interested in, Mr. Brewer and I were talking about, you know, this huge impact that Mr. Vann had on American history, not only African American history, and what a tremendous, impactful individual that he was. So this media award with his name on it, I presume, is the granddaddy.
Yes, it's a big event we have. It's going to be our 30th anniversary of the Vann Awards next year. We'll have the 30th anniversary of the Robert L. Vann Media Awards. It's a pretty big event. It's where we recognize excellence in media coverage of black communities, really black communities all over Western Pennsylvania. Last year, well actually this year, we added a college student component, so there's a division for college journalism. That was the first. And it's grown, it's a growing contest. Chris, as we know, has been there since the beginning, where we recognize excellence in media coverage and online, newspaper, radio, TV, and photography. And it's really great to see, we show all the work, it's really great to see the work that your colleagues are doing. As Chris and Brian said, sometimes we in the media, I think communities of color can be neglected when it comes to coverage, or the wrong coverage is shown. It's really great to see really good writing and photography and TV broadcasts covering these communities.
And let me pick up on what our fearless leader, that's what I call her with great respect, fearless leader, is talking about, because not all those awards go to black journalists. And sometimes the white journalists who are trying to do the right thing need to be told that, yeah, that was pretty good. And so sometimes they win the awards, and I think that reinforces the storytelling that they do, so that they're not just always looking for a crime story to tell.
Which is great. Which is great. I know that my one movie, I only have one.
There'll be others.
And one lady, she saw the movie, and she said, she called me up and said, Lorenzo, I cried. You know, white lady. So I've had a lot of support across the community line. So I know how important that is, that we acknowledge those people who believe in what we're trying to do and support what we're trying to do. So Mr. Vann, he was the, when did he pass away, Chris?
1939. Mr. Vann was the man most responsible for blacks being Democrats, right out of Pittsburgh, and in the Pittsburgh Courier, which according to my mentor, Frank Bolden, had 17 national editions. They used to get it all over the United States through the trains. The Pullman porters who were blacks carried them all over, and they were read everywhere. Between the Courier and the Defender, those were the papers of record for the black community, because the white press in those times didn't care anything about us. He built that paper up, and you can imagine in the 1930s, most black people were still Republicans. They viewed Abraham Lincoln, rightly or wrongly, as the president who freed the slaves. Now, I'm not getting into the history of what he did and what he wanted to do and all that, but they viewed him that way, and blacks were Republicans. 40 acres and a mule was a Republican proposal. It never was implemented, but it was a Republican proposal. And so most blacks were Republicans. And he came out with an editorial that said it's time to turn Lincoln's picture to the wall. We've been Republicans since we've had the franchise, and we have not made any progress in this community yet. And so it's time to go Democrat. Now you got to think, in the 1930s when he's saying this, and you got Strom Thurmond and the James Eastlands of the world, Senator McClellan from my home state, Arkansas, avowed and very public racist. And what they were saying, it was very hard for blacks to turn that ship around and start to vote Democrat. And people don't know that history that comes right out of Pittsburgh from Robert L. Vann, who helped change the variety of the ways that we vote. Now people criticize us for all being Democrats and we ought to go back to the Republicans. But my friend Hop Kendrick, who's been both, says he started as a Republican and he came from nothing and he went to nothing. And so we could debate whether political parties are what they are, but that's an example of Mr. Vann's influence through the Courier and what he did right out of Pittsburgh. He was responsible for changing most of us at that time from being Republicans until looking at a different way to vote Democrat. And once we moved parties, what happened? The Solid South, which was all Democrat, they ran to the Republican Party. So, you know, we need another Robert L. Vann to come out of Pittsburgh and say what we need to do now in independent politics, because I don't think either of the political parties are working. But that's an example of Mr. Vann's influence.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. And that's why I just really, Mr. Brewer, he have you on there. That's great, Chris. I really appreciate that. Tory, you said earlier that you guys were the chapter of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Excuse me, 2 times. Running.
Well, we tied in 2015. In 2015 it was a tie, but this year was all ours.
Now, how did that, what's the process of determining that? How did that work?
We won at the National Association of Black Journalists Convention in New Orleans in August. And it was based on everything we did in 2016. So we had a lot of programming, a lot of activities. We were advocates for, I don't want to get into it, but a controversial issue, but really based on a program. We have a lot of programming. We're a very active chapter. There's always something going on where we have professional development. We do community service, as Chris mentioned, book drives and coat drives. We do the read-in at the Homewood Library for the African American Reading Month, I believe it's called, for literacy. We just always have something going on. I believe even the workshop that Chris co-chairs, I see that as community service because it's free training for high school kids. Any kid can attend. There's an application process and they write an essay, but it's open to any kid, and we provide free training from professional journalists in Pittsburgh.
And she's being modest. There's lots of other programs. We did a program at the East Liberty Library. One day it was 5 inches of snow out there. We were teaching seniors to better use the internet to get the word out about the things that they were doing.
The mobile technology.
And 5 ladies showed up.
Yeah, would have been more if it wasn't a blizzard
that
day.
Yeah, if it hadn't been 5 or 6 inches of snow that day.
Yeah. We just always have something going on. Most of our events are free, the training. We do have benefits for members that members get a discount, like ticketed events, but most of our events are free and open to the public. So a lot of the things we do, even professional development, I see as community service too.
Absolutely. And we were in a pool of other chapters around the country. And the Pittsburgh Black Media Federation was up against the Southern New England chapter and the Baltimore chapter. And
Heads and shoulders.
Yes, right. And we were at the opening ceremony in New Orleans, Louisiana. And they mentioned the Pittsburgh Black Media Federation National Chapter, Professional Chapter of the Year, and we we're ecstatic about it, and what we heard afterwards is because of the amount of program that we have throughout the year.
And that's really good, because what I'm thinking is, and I'll be first to say, when you see a lot of negativity in the news and you're not out, like when I was in grad school, I wasn't out in the streets a lot. I wouldn't, like I had
Too
been.
busy, man.
And you see that, and now I'm sitting here talking to you guys, and I've been out and I've been about and I'm talking to people and seeing all this great stuff that's going on. I'm like, oh no, there's a lot of good stuff going on in the city, in the community, where people are reaching out to help each other. And it just goes to show what you were saying, Chris, why we need programming to get this out so people can see, oh man, I didn't know that was happening.
Well, one of the things we're, as media people, one of the things we're poorest at is blowing our own horn. Until someone invites us on a show like this, we don't go around. We have a newsletter that Tory puts out. It's very efficient. It helps with jobs. All the employers come to us and say, we're looking for an assignment editor at this station. We're looking for somebody who can write copy at this place. But what we are probably poorest at is blowing our own horn. And talking about all the things that we do, to tell you the truth. And so thank you for letting us on so we have this chance to pat ourselves on the back.
Like I said,
Pass it down.
Yeah.
like I said,
And that's what we do as journalists.
When I came to the event, I was like, wow, this is really, really, really great. And my man Stanley, he calls me every week. I just want to check on you, brother. How you doing? And I'm like, wait a minute.
Each one teach one, man.
And that call's coming twice a week.
Okay.
How you doing, brother? I just want to check on you. Everything all right? You heard from Art?
And see, like your mama told you, Lo, when you up there with Denzel and them, you got to do the same thing, okay?
Yeah, that's
all right?
Right.
Yeah, but I believe, you guys probably haven't seen many of my shows, but one thing I talk about a lot is mentoring. And I talk about Anna B. Hellman Center and people like Reverend Mason and Stu. People our age, they know who Reverend Mason and Stu. And we talk about Zeke Winters at the YMCA and how, those guys had a huge impact on my life and our lives, the young guys. In 7th and 8th grade, I was definitely in trouble. I was at risk.
I can't believe it.
I was
Not
I
you.
was definitely at risk. And those guys, man, Mr. Winters, those guys up at the Y, they kept us out of trouble. And by the time I hit 9th grade, I had gotten myself together and I started, making honor roll and all that. And by the time I graduated, I was National Honor Society. But in that 7th and 8th grade year, those 2 years, I was definitely at risk. So, and then when we were little kids, we were at the Anna B. Hellman Center. And so I'm very big on mentoring and reaching back, and it's even embedded in the storytelling, that reaching back to help the disadvantaged, for those of us who have been fortunate enough to, surge forward in life. So.
But Lorenzo, that's happened to just about all of us. It's just that people don't know those people because they might have not been in high-profile professions like we are. One of my greatest mentors was Ms. Vivian T. Hegwood, my 12th grade forensics teacher, who one day grabbed me by the ear and said, "Moore, if you're going to be a class clown, find a way to get paid to do it." And that's exactly what I did. I get to clown on people all the time, but you do it with knowledge, and that's what she taught me, You just can't be clowning for the sake of being funny and clowning.
Absolutely.
So I bet if you ask them, everybody's had someone in their life that had an impact on them like that. It could have been a 12th grade teacher or someone at the Y or anything.
I mean, there's so many people. I mean, I can't even name, I can't even name all of them who've helped me along the way. We all had to have someone that helped us along the way. Right. And, and I will say this, we as members of the media, you may see us on television, hear us on the radio, read our stories, but we are touchable. You can reach out to us. Right. And that's what we try to tell students all the time. We're here for you just like somebody was here for us. So, I mean, that's part of our mission.
And I want to say one thing about the workshop, and I want to stress like how important it is, and Chris is the founder of the workshop. One of the reasons that we have the workshop, again, the Frank Bolden Urban Multimedia Workshop for high school kids, is to try to increase diversity in newsrooms. I'm sure everyone knows it's very lacking among staff, especially among black journalists. The hope is that we can inspire these kids to want to pursue a career in journalism. Although the workshop's open to people of all backgrounds. The application does not have any box for race. We don't know what race the kids are until they show up. But the hope is that it will inspire some young people to want to pursue a career in journalism.
And you can find it on our website.
PBMF.org. We don't have the application up yet.
Yeah,
it will be
usually around April of the year.
We've been
of the
starting
workshop.
early, January, February.
January.
We put the application up. And it's free.
And when we send it out to all of you career instructors and counselors there, please don't put it in the circular file. Pass it on to some deserving student. We need your help in recruitment.
And we reach out to all high schools in the area, so we want to get as many students in the program.
Public and private.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The kids used to stay for a week, stay on the dorms for a week at Point Park, and now we've made it, was it 3 Saturdays? 4 Saturdays. 4 Saturdays.
4 Saturdays.
4 Saturdays, consecutive Saturdays at Point Park.
I was getting old. I couldn't take that week residential.
9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We provide we provide lunch, and it's free. And
that's right.
Great.
And the students that come are very dedicated to it. They want to learn. Many times people think that this business is not attainable. It really is. We always tell people, like Chris says, and I'm going to quote him, you can and you will. That's
succeed.
Chris,
that's right.
Absolutely. That's a Chris Moore quote.
Well, that's from Edwina Kakai's mother.
Okay.
Edwina Kakai was the co-director of the workshop one day, and Edwina just blurted that out because her mama told her that when she was telling her one day, you can't, and it became the motto of the workshop.
Absolutely.
You can and you will. And that's the only answer they get from her when they say, oh, I can't do this, Miss Parrish. You can and you will. That's the only answer they get. You can't back up. Not here. You got to go forward.
Now, I have a question for Tory. Now, Tory, I know you get that fire from somewhere.
She got a quiet fire.
I'm very quiet.
That quiet, cute fire.
Now, I know there's several people who have been inspirational in your life. But who is that one person? But the theme is one person can make a difference and change. Who is that one person who put that fire in you?
I would say my great-grandmother. It wasn't a teacher or anybody in like church or professional setting. I would say my great-grandmother. And and I was her first grandchild. So my great-grandmother really inspired me. She had a 6th grade education, and she always knew her baby could do it. She was always behind me, always encouraging me, always sneaking me a little bit of money, and the other kids didn't get it. So, so I would say, and I look just like her, like same round face. So I would say my great-grandmother was my biggest cheerleader.
Like having a cheerleader. Moses needed a cheerleader when he went down there to talk to Pharaoh.
Exactly.
Right? Aaron said, oh, don't worry, I'll help you. He couldn't get a word in edgewise. Once Moses got down there, man. Everybody needs a cheerleader, sure.
She was, exactly. No one would talk about her baby.
Better not. He'd be in serious trouble, right?
He would. She's from Mississippi, too, and like I said, didn't have a lot of education, but always wanted better for her children, for her child and for her grandchildren.
My grandmother, that lady, she had this spiritual thing that you could walk in a room that she was in, and the room was so warm. Her vibe would generate so much warmth in that room, and you could just walk in a room and you could just feel that warmth in the room. And
that didn't have nothing to do with the coconut cake she had in that glass thing when you walked in that room, did it?
Right.
I have the favorite family story behind my grandmother and her biscuits, which I will not dare say on the air.
Oh, you should tell it, man. I got one with biscuits too.
We have a tradition on the show that We asked for last thoughts, and I want to start with you.
Are we out of time already?
Well,
Just
it burns up. We're having fun.
I don't know. My last thoughts are always what's going on right now. I'm always trying to look over the horizon and see what's coming next. I've always been a curious person, a sense of history and an appreciation. And most people in high school, I don't know about history. I went, ooh, when did that happen? I always wanted to know. And that curiosity has served me well in what I do. And that advice Ms. Haywood gave me in the 12th grade, because I was always gregarious and, you know, I was the one clowning on top of the desk. And she straightened me out and said, Moore, find a way to get paid to do this. And that's essentially what I have done, to tell you the truth. So my last thoughts is that there's someone out there in your life who's telling you something, if you're a young person watching this program, and you're not trying to hear it right now. And sooner or later, you're going to realize what they were saying to you is right. And it's better if you do it sooner and try to get on the go-go about it, because there are people who are planning for your life right now. I have met young people who tell me that they go to school and the teachers let them put their head down on their desk as long as they're not creating any ruckus or something, or they let them get one of those little computer game things and play on that. And I tell them, those people do not love you like Miss Haywood loved me. They do not care anything about you. They want somebody who has to pick up their trash, their refuse, to say, do you want fries with that? And there's nothing wrong with those jobs, but ask somebody who's doing it if that's what they want to do in life. And if you don't want somebody to plan for you for the rest of your life, you need to start developing a plan for yourself and putting yourself around the people who are doing what you want to do. And when you put yourself in that element, you'll be successful. Just go get it.
Absolutely. You know, Chris, those are great points. You know, absolutely. And, you know, I've always been a very inquisitive person, always asking questions in class. I was one of the first people always wanted to read in class. First paragraph, all right, I'll do it. I'll do it. Yeah. So, you know, it's always big to, you know, to be able to take the initiative to be out in the forefront, to be a leader, but you also have to be a good follower as well. You know, we as journalists, you know, and Mr. Moore just said it a few minutes ago, about we are not good at patting ourselves on the back, because one of the things that we do as journalists, we tell the story and we don't become the story. However, if it's, you know, coming from any of us, the advice that we can give you is, if you're into something, make sure that, you know, you can, again, get paid for doing it. There's a lot of young people out there, you know, and older people who, let's say, love video games, okay? If you're a good artist, you can learn how to draw those video games or learn how to code, and, you know, you can be the person who's bringing in 7 figures, you know? People say, hey, I would never work for a fast food restaurant, but, hey, these are Fortune 500 companies. You know, you can start on fries, and then next thing you know, become the CEO. So we always try to look at the glass half full, and those are the type of positive pieces that we try to instill in young people, because again, we didn't do it on our own.
That's right.
We had someone to help us to matriculate through life, and it's only right to be able to give back. So again, we don't do it for ourselves, you know, we do it because we feel it needs to be done.
Amen.
So don't pay us, pay it forward to the next young person.
Preach, Reverend.
Well, I agree with everything Mr. Moore and Mr. Cook said, everything. I'm also going to put a plug in for PBMF and all of our activities we have going on. Our website is, as you see on the screen, pbmf.org, and that's my email address. Feel free to email me for information about the chapter. Our membership is open to journalists and public relations professionals and also college students. And we always have something going on. So check out our Facebook page, Facebook.com/Pittsburgh Black Media Federation.
We even have fun things to do sometimes.
We have fun things
It's not
to
all
do.
work,
Yeah.
right?
So December's coming up. We're going to probably have a holiday
Twitter and
mixer.
everything.
Last year we had a holiday brunch. We have a book discussion October 25th at the East Liberty Library with the author of 30 Days of Black Man. and with some other things coming up. My term as president, my second term and last term ends December 31st. We have
That's what
elections
you
coming
think.
up. Oh, it's ending. Mr. Cook is running for president.
Somebody's going to talk to you.
No, we already got the ticket.
Yeah. So, like I said, we're a very active chapter, and follow us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is open. You can see everything we're doing, and come out and check out some of the things we're doing. And thank you for having us on the show.
Yeah, thank you
Amen.
very much. This is
Well,
great program.
my first thing is I want to thank you guys for coming on, and I really, really enjoyed this show. I enjoyed Mr. Brewer. I enjoyed when Dr. Erb brought his group on, and I just really, really respect what you guys are doing.
They're off to Haiti, aren't they?
Yeah, they left this morning.
I saw some of
Yeah,
them.
some of our members went to Haiti.
There's another thing.
Yeah,
Some went to St.
we went
Croix.
to we went to Cuba in March.
Absolutely.
We went to
We did
Paris.
a fundraiser for the victims of the hurricane in
Yes,
St.
we
Croix.
did.
We do
And
a lot
that's
of
still
international
on our
reporting.
website. Good point.
We're an international organization.
The community needs to know
Yes,
and
yes.
reach out.
See,
So
we don't
PBMF.org.
pat ourselves on the back all the time.
Thanks for reminding me. So that fundraiser
That's
for
right.
St. Croix, the link is on our website, pbmf.org. One of our members, one of our board members is from St. Croix originally, Olga George, who works at KDKA.
We sent off the airport this morning with 9,000 pounds of goods to help people out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people need to know this. And I want to also thank you guys for the good thing that's happened to me from when I came to your event. And you were gracious enough to show my movie. I had just finished it. It was my first one. I didn't know what was going to happen with the movie. The movie has since then was accepted in Carnegie Screenwriters Film Festival.
All right.
Fantastic.
It's
Manette Seats.
Manette. Manette.
Filmmakers Corner.
Filmmakers
Gonna
Corner.
be on WQED soon. All right.
I've shown it to a number of people all over the country, and great, great feedback. So it makes me feel really good. In your first one, you know,
Absolutely.
you're fragile. You know,
Yeah,
your ego is
you go,
fragile.
though. Okay.
But it's been very well received. And then my friend Stanley, and he turned me on to art. Art is taking me under his wing. He's like real big time, and he's taking me under his wing, and I really, really appreciate that. So
We do expect front row seats when the big premiere of your next film comes on.
Green room access.
That's right, green room access,
Get us
behind the
backstage.
stage, yeah.
For sure.
Hey.
So what I always talk about, and it came from a speech that I was fortunate enough to be able to give, is that I came up with a thing that one single person can make a difference and change the world. And I cited the different individuals who, through their one single life, made that much difference in the world. And I feel that if anyone is passionate enough about what it is they want to do, then they can accomplish that.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I'm passionate about is seeing our community uplifted and turned around,
Amen,
and
brother.
to be what we envision our community to be, and what we know our community can be. And that's what's so great about all what we're talking about. We got to build on that positive side of what's happening in the community,
Yes,
and you know, just push it right on through. But we have to believe that we can do that.
Absolutely.
And
Can and we will.
can and we will. And so that's what I say each show, that one single person can make a difference and change the world. And again, I want to thank you guys for being my guest, and I want to thank everyone out there who, particularly my friends who watch each and every show, that I know you watch each and every show, and I appreciate you very much. And goodbye.
Way of time, nothing and no one goes unchanged. There are